Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help ambitious private practitioners across the globe to brand themselves and grow their dream practices. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building ninja tips. Visit privatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and our signature marketing e-course. Here are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey there, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. Well, I wanted to welcome you to this very special episode, and it's special because as Kate and I have been actually recording for 5 years this podcast, I have never done an episode solo, meaning not just me interviewing a guest, but I'm actually doing this episode completely solo today. And I'm going to be talking to you guys all about setting goals to achieve results. And it's perfect for this time of year in January, although I actually start my goal planning process in the beginning of December, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, I hope that you guys joined us last week as we spoke with Elizabeth Arias. And this was a topic that you guys often want. I think we have 3 podcasts on this now, all about writing effective notes. So go ahead and listen to that so you can get your notes up to speed. And who knows, maybe that will be one of your goals this year as you listen to the podcast. If you're brand new to us, I want to say welcome to the Startup Nation family. Thank you so much for choosing us to be a part of and listen to our podcast. And if you're not new and you're a loyal listener, I want to say welcome back. For our newest Startup Nation family members, we do have a gift for you. Head on over to privatepracticestartup.com. Slide on over to the resources tab, and there you will see our free attorney-approved customizable HIPAA form, our HIPAA form for free for you. So go ahead and download that and feel free to enjoy whatever else you see there. All right. So this podcast is coming out in January, although I wanted to come out in December. January is often the time that people really start to look at goals. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about my own process to help you and maybe kind of spark your own goal journey if you are not one that writes down goals. I've been writing down my goals for about probably over 10 years now, and probably for the last 5-6 years. I start my process in December. So while most people are kind of holiday partying and, eating, drinking cookies, gaining a few pounds, for me, December is a time to kind of like go inward a little bit and reflect on the year. In total, although I do look at each aspect of the year and quarter and on a weekly basis, it's just a time for me to reflect. And also, too, I think with the deadline of the clock striking midnight on December 31st, as it always does, and we move into a new year, which is literally just one day. I don't know, it just kind of begins to put things in perspective. And it's also a time that I speed up, review, check anything out that I really wanted to achieve this year, and make a commitment to get that done. So that's just a little bit about my own process. Some people start their goal planning in October or November. So it's really dependent on you. One thing I do want to say, therapists, is I know that I was referencing our paperwork podcast previously. A lot of times, we don't like paperwork, right? Paperwork is the bane of most therapists' existence. But I want to make a parallel between, what we do with clients and our work in community mental health, hospitals, and all of that stuff to goal planning. Like, we kind of have an advantage in goal planning because we've been doing it. And a lot of times I think it's just like, it's that paperwork that we have to do. But the reality is if we can form a better relationship with our paperwork, from intake to closing or celebration, I like to say, and really look at that, how that parallels the process of goal planning for ourselves. We probably form a new relationship with our paperwork, but also a better relationship with goal planning for ourselves. If you think about a biopsychosocial, right, that is like this overall arching summary of information. And when I look at goal planning, especially for a year, I really like to look at anywhere from 7 to 10 domains, right? And that's kind of like the biopsych, right? We're looking at mental, emotional, spiritual, or religious, health, career and finances, family, social, leisure. These are all things that we definitely tackle in a biopsychosocial. So I like to look at those aspects when I'm goal planning for my next year. And then what we do with clients, right, is we take that information, we formulate a diagnosis, and we write a summary to support the diagnosis. And then the diagnosis really has to also follow with the treatment plan, right? And we're really looking at maybe 2 to 3 treatment plan goals, depending on what context you work in and things like that. And really, treatment plans are designed, to be utilized and reviewed. And we talk about specific measurable results. When I learned how to treatment plan, finally, I think after 2 years of being in the field, I didn't know how to do it very well until one of my awesome friends and supervisors at the time, shout outs to Maureen Carroll, taught me how to actually write measurable objectives, right? Going from the baseline to the goal line. And that's kind of really important. One of the things that I think is very difficult for private practice owners overall is documenting, reporting, tracking, and measuring. I know when I first got into business coaching about 6 years ago, being coached myself, that was one thing that my business coach shared, that we need to get that going. And now, everywhere that I go and any type of coaching program that I'm personally in, that is, paramount, because the reality is, like we say in therapy, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Well, if you're not tracking and measuring it, you really don't know what's happening, and you can't change and or improve it. And I'll say one of the greatest joys that I have at the private practice startup, our amazing virtual assistant, Ruth, creates reports on a monthly basis for Kate and myself. And then Kate and I take an opportunity to review the reports, and we make decisions about our business based on the reports. What's going well? What's not going well? What's working? What do we want to do more of? And business becomes a lot easier when we're actually looking at the data. So goal planning is exactly the same. Before we dive in a little bit more, let's just go ahead and take a quick moment and thank our sponsor. Okay, guys, it's sponsor time. You know what? Instead of reading a script about Gusto's payroll and benefits, we wanted to tell you what small business owners say, the people who use Gusto every day. Here's what one small business owner says. With Gusto, I think of payroll as a 30-second job. The website is so friendly and a joy to use. Friendly payroll? You don't hear that every day. And how about Amy from Utah? Amy says, I love Gusto so much. It's so painless. It's like going to the spa, and we have great options and rates, even though we're a super small team. Like going to the spa? Wow. And here's what Mneet says about Gusto's support team. Whenever something comes up, I reach out, and literally 24 hours later, they tell us what to do or assure us that we've already handled it. Smart technology and friendly humans, that's super cool. Honestly, the list goes on, and right now our listeners get 3 months free when they go to gusto.com/PPS. Yep, 3 months of payroll, benefits, administration, and more, totally free. Again, that's gusto.com/PPS.
There are so many ways to keep your practice organized, but Therapy Notes is by far the best. Their easy-to-use, secure platform lets you not only do billing, scheduling, and progress notes, but also create a client portal to share documents and request signatures. Plus, they offer amazing unlimited phone support. So when you have a question, they're there so you can get help fast. Get started with Therapy Notes today, trusted by over 60,000 professionals. Go to therapynotes.com and enter promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, and you'll get 2 months for free. Also, you can listen to episode 54, where we interviewed Brad Pliner and took an in-depth view into their EHR.
Let's talk a little bit about how I go through my own process in regards to goal planning. So my goal planning process, I don't do it all in one sitting. I do take some time to really look at it. And the goal planning sheet that I utilize now came from my last business coach, Michael Dill from Action Coach. And why I like it is because it's not just about getting to the nitty gritty of the goal planning aspect. It really helps you look at a year in review. It's broken up into personal as well as professional, and then I break each down a little bit more. One of the things that I really like is utilizing my goals, and I actually look at them, at least the big goals I look at once a quarter, right? And I review, I tweak, I update. I know for me, and maybe a lot of you guys can relate to this as well, I had that mindset of if I set like a goal, like it was just in stone and I couldn't change it, right? And if I changed it, that meant I didn't achieve it and I failed. Not the case at all, right? Goals are meant to be reviewed, tweaked, and changed. And so that's what I do on a quarterly basis, looking at my bigger goals is I look at that, maybe something's not relative anymore. And so we can choose to stop it, and that's okay as well. I remember many years ago, I had a client who hated the word goals. She liked the word target because it was something to aim for. So if goals have a negative connotation for you, go ahead and think about reframing the name so it's a little bit easier for you. Let's get back to the goal planning. So when we look at personal goals, right, for me, things that fall into the personal area are definitely, health related as well as leisure, social, family time. Travel is definitely one. So those are some of the things that I like to look at. And why I like this process is because we look at a year in review. So if this is the first time you're goal planning and you don't have goals from previous years, you're not going to look at a documented year in review, but you can write down some of the things in the certain areas and really look at, what did you achieve? I think that's really important. And also looking at, where did you fall short? Where did you want to achieve something that you didn't? And this is also the opportunity to be really clear with yourself and honest with yourself when you're goal planning. And when you look at that year in review, why was it you fell short? What happened? Is it something that you need to change about what you're doing? A discipline? Do you need accountability? Do you need to become someone else? Become someone else in the sense of like, who do you need to be more on that kind of being level to really achieve this? If you are someone who's a bit scattered and not organized, like who do you need to become? You need to become organized. How are you going to do that? If that's just not your default way of being, how are you going to do that? What are some things that you're going to go ahead and put in place? So looking at the year in review is really important. And then we do the same thing for business, career, wealth, and finances. If you want to put that there, you could put finances under personal. It's really up to you. And this is what I like to look at. And this is really cool when you're looking at the data. If the beginning of the year, whatever year it is, I projected I wanted to see this many clients, or I wanted to open my group practice by July, or I wanted to go from 100,000 to 150,000. What happened? Looking at the data is really awesome. And also too, I'm going to say, look at this like lovingly, right? Like give yourself a break. You also be honest with yourself of where you might need to kick yourself in the butt. You know what I mean? If you're not doing what you said that you wanted to do and you're making up excuses for it. But also, life happens, and in a year time span, a lot of life happens. So if you've had a difficult year, as many of us have had here in 2020, then give yourself some gratitude and compassion. That is very, very important. One of the other things too, and that I was definitely really, really bad at, was celebrating wins. And I'm not talking about celebrating the big win at the end of the year, but celebrating the small wins. My default way of being has often been, great, that's nice. Now let's just move on to the next. And that's not good, because that doesn't really create good energy around what you're achieving. It's kind of letting the universe know like, okay, well, whatever, that wasn't that big of a deal. So let's just keep moving. And there wasn't as much enjoyment for me. So it's really important for me personally to take a step back and just kind of sit within what we've created. Recently on our podcast, we have now exceeded this number, but we hit 500,000 downloads. And I remember Kate sharing that with everybody, and she had posted about it. I'm like, okay, cool. And, I have a little sometimes comparisonitis. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And recently, actually this week, I was on someone else's podcast where they had introduced me, and I didn't even make this part of my bio, but they said, I heard that your podcast just hit 500,000 downloads. And I have to say, hearing that from someone else's mouth was like, wow, like that is a big achievement. And I'm not sure that many people who do set out to do a podcast achieve that. So that was like really cool and something to absolutely be celebrated. So one thing I love about this goal planning process is as you drill down and kind of closer to the end of this goal planning process, as you achieve your certain goals, you match up a reward with that. So whatever that is for you, it doesn't have to be a monetary thing. It could be, a day in the park with your kids, or a picnic at the beach, or it could be some retail therapy, whatever it is that is important to you, and it's something to move towards and celebrate. I remember when one of our launches for, I think, our marketing e-course and coaching program, I had said when we hit this number that I was going to buy myself a bottle of Camus wine, which I really love. It's about $80 a bottle, and it was definitely very joyful. And I remember driving to Total Wine to pick that up, but it felt really good because it was like, I'm rewarding myself for this, where in the past I would just kind of move past what we were creating and on to the next thing. So celebrating your wins is really important. And so how you do that is go ahead after you've completed your goals and really look at the milestones that you're achieving. And right next to them, you're going to go ahead and list the rewards for those wins. Let's go ahead and just take a quick moment for our sponsor.
You didn't become a therapist to reconcile your expenses or figure out tax deductions. Herd Bookkeeping and Tax guides your private practice with affordable bookkeeping, one-on-one expert help, and tax support so you can get back to seeing clients. This means no more fiddling around with those spreadsheets, overpaying accountants, or guessing your quarterly tax payments. Herd is the only financial platform designed exclusively for you, mental health professionals. Just ask Melanie Evans, a clinical social worker from New York. Melanie says, it's great to have an expert to turn to whenever I have a question related to accounting. Knowing that my bookkeeping and taxes are in good hands, I can really focus on the more clinical parts of my work. Whether this is your first year in practice or you're an experienced clinician, Herd Bookkeeping and Tax helps you manage your practice finances with ease at a price you can afford. Visit joinherd, HEARD.com to schedule a consultation and see how their services can help your practice thrive.
Let's talk about breaking down your goals. So as you begin to look at and explore the different domains of your life and the things that you want to achieve, and you don't have to fill them all up. This is your own personal journey. Like, what is your personal journey about your health or your finances? What's the personal journey, obviously, about your private practice? Family, friends, relationships. And again, you don't have to fill them all. It's just what is important to you. So here, this is the place that we're going to go from kind of large down to like micro and action steps. So for you in a year time span, when you think about, we'll say your health, for example, maybe you want to lower your cholesterol. Maybe you want to lose weight. Maybe you want to work out more. Maybe you want to switch your diet and have more energy, whatever that is. What is the baseline and the goal line? So writing that in kind of the SMART, right? Have you guys heard of SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, action-oriented, relevant, and time-specific. So we want to really create that. And maybe that goal of your health you want to achieve by July 1st. So you'll go ahead and put that. One of the things that I often would do as well that was a mistake and left me exhausted is I would front load all my goals, meaning I'd have all these different domains and want to start working on 10 things at once. And as you guys know, that doesn't work. So really look at, your year, projected year, and what it is that you're going to do and accomplish. As we're coming out of 2020, going into 2021, we're still in the pandemic. If you wanted to be able to achieve something where you needed more time, but you have kids at home still because maybe they're doing, homeschooling still, and that might not be the best time. Maybe you look to start in May, and then by the time May comes, who knows what's going to be going on in our world and economy. And then maybe you need to readjust again, and that is okay. So again, goals are meant to be flexible and fluid. So once you're clear on what it is that you want to achieve overall in each domain, this is where you begin to break things down. How are you going to achieve it? What do you need? Who do you need to help you? What are you going to be responsible for? And begin to break these things down. So sometimes for me, I love traveling, right? So I'll make a list of different places that I would like to go. And it might not be all during that year, but then I start to put them in date and time frames. Okay, we're going to go to, Savannah, Georgia in August. And that's going to be a weekend trip. Is that going to be with friends or just us? I always like to do, at least one or two big trips out of the country for a week. And usually a bunch of small trips all around. So I'll put all that stuff down and begin to look at my schedule and begin to put that into my schedule. And that's really important. For maybe your private practice or your career goal, maybe you want to bring on an assistant, or maybe you would love to bring on 3 new therapists to the group practice. How is that going to happen? When are you going to do that by? How are you going to find these therapists? What job boards, or are you going to advertise at a university? So those types of things. So you want to start to get in action around those things. And so I do that kind of specific, but overall loosely, right? And then I take my goals and break them down into 90-day plans. Again, I have to credit Action Coach, my business coach for this. Michael Dill is really breaking things down into 90 days. And why I love the 90-day plan is you're planning for it a week or two before the quarter happens. So we're looking at December, March, June, September, and then again December. And so you're taking time, and what they would do is something called Growth Club. And this is the time that you take a step back and you work on your business. And I can't say enough about working on your business. And those of you who are newer to private practice, maybe in the first 2 years, a lot of times there's so much time and effort and bootstrapping that you're doing a lot of working in the business as well. And this planning periods, I often find I gain the most value out of planning periods, because you're taking a step back, you're decreasing distractions, and you're allowing yourself to look at things in review, right? We're not just running on doing the next thing, which again was one of my defaults until I learned to take a step back, really look at the business, work on the business. And I do this again for my life as well. And, it's also really cool because as you tweak and measure things, and as you change things and have new targets, I can't tell you the amount of times that Kate and I have done this in our business here at the Private Practice Startup. And it's amazing to look back each quarter and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize we wrote that down, but holy cow, we achieved that. And sometimes we didn't even really make it all that specific. It just got written down and placed on paper. I remember actually in 2020, when we were reviewing goals for quarter 4, I remember saying like, hey, we made this amount of income last year. This is what it would take to make it the same. Oof, that feels like a big number. But we wrote it down and we looked at it, and what would that take? And the reality is we're not at the end of December yet when I'm recording this, so I can't tell you exactly, but we're pretty close to hitting that. So that was really, really cool. And you guys know this, right? You're therapists, you probably tell this to your clients all the time, write these things down, but a lot of times we're not doing this for ourselves. So I'm going to invite you to utilize this as self-care and planning. So then we take the goals from the year down to the 90-day. So we're looking at week per week. What is it that we're doing that's going to move the needle forward? Again, I'm going to say this to you because I often default on this. Do not front load all of your goals. So if you're working on 3 major goals for that quarter, don't fill up each week with attempting to achieve something for every goal. And a lot of times, some of these things might be repetitive. If you're trying to build your business through referral networking, right? Maybe you're committed to meeting 2 new people each week, and then that's just kind of it for the goal. Like that's the commitment. And then what are you going to achieve through that? For me, what I do from there is I then take my goals down and I do a 100-day sprint. You can do a 90-day sprint. And I really look at streamlining specific goals each day and each week. So the question then becomes, what is it that I need to do? The top 1 to 3 things I need to do today to inch closer to that goal. And I literally sit down with a journal. I restate my commitment every morning. I write my gratitudes, and then I write down the 3 things that I'm going to focus on. From the journal, I then transcribe it onto my to-do or to-achieve list. That's all categorized. And I have like boxes below Monday through Friday with 1, 2, and 3, and I place them in there. Why this is so important, as organized as I am, I'm human and I get extremely distracted. I most often distract myself when I'm in procrastination mode by email, because email is kind of easy to check, and I'll just respond to this really quickly. I literally have this sitting to the left of me every day. And when I feel like I'm getting off track or I need to stay on track, I look at it and say, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's a really important reminder for me, and it's a really important tool and my own accountability partner to look at and be like, okay, this is what I need to be doing. And ultimately, I do achieve a lot more for sure, as long as I am not allowing other things to distract myself. So this is where, when we move from the week back into the quarter, is really taking that step back and looking at what do we achieve from the quarter, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to keep doing, what do we need to stop doing. And then we take another step back and look at what do we say that we're going to do for this year? Where does this fall in alignment? And then we're doing the process again. We're looking at the 90-day goal planning, as well as then, the weekly goal planning and daily goal planning. So I hope that this doesn't feel overwhelming. It does feel like a lot, and I get that. And, it's also a process. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and every year I tweak and modify it. I think last year in 2019, I added the 100-day sprint and have been utilizing that as an effective tool for me. And it's really about finding what is working for you. But what I will say, and I think in summary, is ultimately, you got to take time to plan and really create your life and utilize what you know as a therapist in the client process, right? From intake to discharge, AKA celebration. What we do there is, it's kind of like goal planning. And if you took that and utilized that in your own business, in your own life, what else would you achieve this year? The other thing that I think is really important, and, I've definitely experienced this, like going on a diet and losing weight. At some point, like, you plateau in your weight. And you kind of get on yourself and you're like, oh, I just can't lose this 5 pounds. But when you look at the numbers of where you came from, or your body mass index, or your health numbers, or pictures, you realize that you achieved a lot. So one of the things that I do love about goal planning is it's documented, and you look back and, the perception of what we achieved is often skewed sometimes by our own perception, or how we're feeling, or what we're thinking about what we achieved or didn't achieve. And it really helps kind of set the bar straight and say, wow, I did actually achieve a ton more than I thought. One thing that, I often hear people talk about, business coaches and stuff like that, really also creating the 3, 5, 10, 15, 20-year goal, or a few of those. And they really talk about that we can achieve more in 3 to 5 years than in 1 year. So for me, that's something that I will probably look at incorporating this year. What is my 3-year goal? What is my 5-year goal? And if I actually look at that, and as I was preparing for this podcast this morning, thinking about 10 years ago, where was I 10 years ago? So I literally left full-time community mental health to go into practice full-time. And before that, I never ever thought I would have started a business. I was definitely afraid of business. I didn't have any business sense or knowledge or know-how. And 10 years later today, I am now starting my 4th business. So wow, that's like crazy, and achieving income goals that I never thought that I could achieve. So I'm wondering what's possible for you. If you've had a vision in your mind of where you would like to be, whether it's your dream practice or something else, if you created that 10-year goal or even 5-year goal, where could you end up? I want to wish you guys an amazing 2021, or an amazing year whenever you're listening to this. Know that Kate and I are here cheering you on and rooting for you. We actually do have a dream practice visualization and a goal planning worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and add those into the show notes so you guys can utilize that in case you don't have some type of goal planning template already. And knowing that, know that we are also here with our marketing e-course and coaching programs to really assist you in having your dream practice and lifestyle, whatever that is for you. It's an honor and pleasure, Startup Nation, to serve you. We love you. We love hearing from you. Please let us know what podcasts most resonate with you. We always love when you share the love. It really is awesome. I mean, that is like really, truly one of the best parts of opening the email box is when we see stuff from you guys and you guys say something like, oh, I love your podcast. I've, created my business from your podcast, or your paperwork's been really helpful. We always so appreciate that. And we hope that you guys join us next for our next podcast, which we bring back Tiffany McLean, always amazing to speak with her. She is a ball of energy. And on this podcast, we talk about money, race, and worth. So if your goal is financial and you are struggling with some limiting beliefs and things like that, definitely check out her podcast. Startup Nation, thanks for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery. Have an awesome and inspired day, everybody. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.